Welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 2176B, and today's date is May 17th, 2020, and the title of the episode is Countdown is a Go. We're at week 3 of 10 Boom Weeks incoming. Now, before I get started, let's talk about health. Collagen may be the closest thing we'll ever get to a real fountain of youth. The older you are, in fact, the more likely it's caught your attention, and for good reason. Many health experts now agree that consuming collagen is as crucial as it gets to renewing and revitalizing how you look and feel. After all, collagen is the most abundant protein in your body and is essentially the glue that holds you together. So visit healthwithx22.com and click the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, during this event, we know the deep state, the mainstream media, they were trying to push a certain agenda. They were trying to remove the people's rights. They were trying to establish a new world order system. They were trying to keep the economy shut down and destroy the economy until the elections to weaken Trump. They wanted everyone vaccinated. They wanted everyone to have paperwork. They wanted a controlled society. And they tried to push their agenda. But we need to remember that Trump and the Patriots, they knew the playbook of the deep state. They knew what they were trying to do. And what they did was they used everything that they tried to do against them. Look what's happening now around the country. We're seeing protests. We're seeing people say, you know what, we're done here. People are seeing tyranny for the first time in real time. They're watching their elected leaders tell them they cannot live their lives. Think about that for a second. You cannot make a living because I told you you cannot. Think about that. Trump and the Patriots, they wanted everyone to see this. Because moving forward, they need to understand who the tyrants are. Because what's coming out? What are they dripping out? They're dripping out the declassified information. That's what we've been watching right now. Drip, declassify, drip, declassify, drip, declassify. And they need the people to understand. And people are starting to wake up. And this is what the deep state is so afraid of. Because once you wake someone up, you can't put them back to sleep. Because you know why? Because they ask questions. It's part of our human DNA to say, well, wait a minute. This doesn't make sense anymore. And then they start to ask questions. Then they do the research. And then they start to look up things. Even if big tech is deleting, hiding, taking down information, what do people do? They search out the information. They talk to others. And you can always find it. What we're watching today, as the big tech companies take down videos and censor people, this is book burning. That's what you're seeing right now. Think about it. Back then, the deep state, when they took books and they burned them, that's the information they didn't want you to see. They only wanted you to read certain information. The same thing today. Yes, our forms of media are very different today. We have video, we have electronic print, and what are they doing? They're burning it up. They're making it disappear because they don't want you to see that narrative. They only want you to see their narrative, but it's falling apart. The information is getting out there, and people are starting to notice what they're doing. And you can see that these mainstream media organizations, the big tech companies, they're trying as hard as they possibly can to hide all this. But it's going to be impossible. I mean, think about it. The declassified information is continually coming out, showing that these individuals, they spied on Trump. They spied on others. They did things that were not legal. They unmasked certain individuals without having a warrant or a good reason or evidence to do so. And they're getting caught. Now, James Clapper, he's being interviewed by these mainstream media outlets, and they're trying to shape the narrative that, hey, did you do anything wrong? No, I didn't. See, he didn't do anything wrong. But I noticed, and a lot of people noticed, when you ask a very specific question, they don't want anyone to see what they have to say or they block it out on purpose. Do I think this is a coincidence that all of a sudden, when a certain question is asked to Clapper, all of a sudden he went dark? I don't think so. Take a listen to what happened with CNN and James Clapper when he's asked a specific question.
Oh, absolutely, it is.
And if anyone did leak the contents of these conversations with or without the name, that would be a problem, yes? We've lost the shot. I wonder if we can at least get him on the phone to finish this. Let's try to get Director Clapper back.
Now, the mainstream media, we know that they are knowingly involved in all of this, and they're going to try to hide, spin as much as they possibly can until the very end. And as they keep doing this, they're making it worse and worse for themselves. Remember, the declassified information is going to show that all these players, Clapper, Brennan, Obama, Biden, you name it, they're all involved. It's going to show that there are certain networks and certain individuals that are also involved. And in the very end, it's not going to work out for them. I mean, look what's happening with Flynn already, with Judge Sullivan. There are no prosecutors, and they don't want to drop the case because you know what happens when they drop the case. Everything starts to move in a completely different direction. It shows that the special counsel, Mueller, those individuals, they were making all of this up. They were blackmailing his son. Remember, Trump asked about where's the original 302? Why haven't they produced the original 302? Well, Technofog, he tweeted this out about the 302. Something I had overlooked. Confirmation that the original Flynn 302 was drafted immediately after the interview the same day, per Comey testimony provided in the Department of Justice motion to dismiss. This isn't consistent with the statement to the court by Flynn prosecutor Brandon Van Grack. The government had produced all versions in the government's possession of the FBI report of the January 24th, 2017 interview of Flynn. Flynn's original FD 302 is so important, the special counsel had to leak a prosecution threat against Flynn's son just to avoid turning it over to his original lawyers, Covington. Think about this for a second. They don't want to produce the original 302. Why? That's the big question, because the original 302 is going to show that Flynn didn't lie. They didn't think he lied. And all of this was created out of thin air to blackmail Flynn and get rid of him and have him plead guilty to lying. And they don't want to let this go, because once they do, it's game over for them. Representative Jim Jordan, he's out there saying that we need to get the information on the Obama administration with Biden, with their dealings with Burisma Holdings. We need all the documentation related to Hunter Biden's Burisma dealings. Now, a lot of individuals are asking for this documentation. This documentation needs to be handed over, all of it, so we can see exactly what happened and then compare it with Rudy Giuliani's documentation that he already handed over to Bill Barr. And once we have all of this, you're going to see quid pro quo. You're only going to see a lot more than that, but that's just the beginning. Now, very interestingly, as we said in the beginning here, the big tech companies, the mainstream media, they're trying to censor as much as they possibly can. Now, Trump, he retweeted Michelle Monken's tweet on censorship at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Google. And she had this whole video talking about censorship, that when she came online and she started to go and produce information on these social networks, I never thought I'd have to worry about censorship just because I have a different opinion, because I see things differently, or the evidence that I produce is completely different than the mainstream media narrative. And as soon as Trump went ahead and retweeted this, what did Twitter do? Well, they took down the entire tweet with the video. So she was talking about censorship, Trump retweeted it, and then they censored her. It's unbelievable. And we know from Q that these social media platforms, they cannot read memes. Only the NSA can read the memes. And we know this from post 4236, where Q has given us post 2145, and it says, prepare your memes. Non-NSA tech today cannot read, filter the memes. So what did Facebook do? They announced a hateful memes challenge with a 100,000 prize tool to identify hate speech. And to do this, they decided to purchase Giphy for $400 million. Now, Giphy, they create memes, GIFs. They use it on Instagram. They use it on Facebook. So most likely with Giphy and what they're doing right now, they're looking to control which memes are not part of their system, because Giphy has a lot of the memes, has a lot of the GIFs. So if anyone is creating something outside of this now, it seems that their system's going to recognize this and flag it. And I'm sure they're going to have reviewers now to check everything out. But what's very interesting is that the Justice Department, and we know there's an antitrust investigation going on right now, they are looking at, as we know, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and the Justice Department is moving toward bringing a case as soon as this summer against Google. And this is coming from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. He said much of the state's investigation has focused on Google's online advertising business. The company owns a dominant tool at every link in the complex chain between online publishers and advertisers. The Justice Department likewise is making Google's ad technology one of its points of emphasis. But it is also focusing more broadly on concerns that Google uses its dominant search business to stifle the competition. Now, Mr. Paxson, he said the pandemic hasn't slowed their efforts whatsoever. He said, we've issued civil subpoenas to Google and impacted third parties. We're going to be ready to wrap up all of this by fall. If we determine that filing is merited, we will go to court soon after that. So they're not just going after Google because it's just one company. We have to remember all these companies like Facebook, Twitter, and Google, they've purchased a huge number of companies, which means they're getting rid of all the competition. And going all the way for Google, going all the way back to February of 2001, they have purchased something like 60 to 70 companies where now they control a lot of the technology. The same thing with Facebook. I mean, look, Facebook just purchased Giphy. So they're doing this to control everything. And this is why there's an investigation going on. Because once you control everything, it's a monopoly, and you can censor and you have full control. And this is exactly what we've been seeing. And this is why they're looking into the social media platforms business to see if they are violating the Sherman Act, the antitrust laws, and whatnot. Now, we know with this event, businesses are starting to open up. People are starting to get out there again. The fear level is now dropping. I see people at bars. I see people working in businesses. I see more businesses opening up every single day. Remember, the deep state, they don't want this to happen. This is their biggest fear. This is what they tried to stop. And now the opposite is happening. Remember, going all the way back, they said, well, we might not be able to open until the end of the year or next year. We might have to have mail-in ballots. And this is exactly what they've been pushing. And who's been pushing this? Who's behind all of this? It's starting to look like it's Clinton and George Soros. I mean, I don't think anyone's really surprised about this. So under the guise of fighting the coronavirus, governments across the United States and beyond are partnering with a shady organization connected to the Clintons and George Soros to deploy contact tracing, schemes involving technology and tens of thousands of new government workers to track everyone. Remember that bill we talked about, HR 6666? That's what we're talking about. And under this, guys, there's organizations that are pushing mail-in voting. And you can see it's being pushed in many different states like California, in New York, in New Jersey, and many others, because they don't want people going to the polls. Why? Because what has Trump and the Patriots been doing? They locked down the border. They are now pushing voter ID laws. And this election, they won't be able to cheat. And this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to cheat any way they possibly can. Now, the mainstream media is out there, and they're trying to make it seem like the Obama administration, they left behind a pandemic playbook for the Trump administration. And the Trump administration, they're not following the Obama administration pandemic playbook. And we have Kayleigh, the press secretary of the White House, Kayleigh McEnany. She's out there saying, no, that is not true whatsoever. This is what she said. Some have erroneously suggested that the Trump administration threw out the pandemic response playbook left by the Obama-Biden administration. What the critics fail to note, however, is that this thin packet of paper was replaced by 2 detailed, robust pandemic response reports commissioned by the Trump administration. In 2018, the Trump administration issued our Pandemic Crisis Action Plan. Further, from August 13th to the 16th, the Trump administration conducted the Crimson Contagion 2019 Functional Exercise. This was a pandemic simulation to test the nation's ability to respond to a large-scale outbreak. In January of 2020, the Department of Health and Human Services issued the Crimson Contagion 2019 Functional Exercise After Action Report. This exercise exposed the shortcomings in legacy planning documents, which informed Trump's coronavirus response team. Trump, the Patriots, again, they knew the playbook of the deep state. So they ran a simulation showing that their plan would not work. This was done on purpose because they knew that they were going to go backwards in time and say, listen, you weren't following what Obama laid out. They already knew what they were going to do. And we need to understand the strategy of Trump, the Patriots. This is all about exposing the tyrants. This is about exposing the D's, the deep state, on what they have done. This is the invisible enemy. I do believe that when Trump talks about the invisible enemy, 1, he's talking about the virus. 2, he's talking about those non-elected individuals who are hiding behind the curtain, who are orchestrating all of this. And he wants everyone to see this. And remember, this whole thing with vaccines, with hydroxychloroquine, Trump mentions these things on purpose. Now, remember, he uses their weapons against them. Remember how they wanted all these ventilators? They knew we didn't have ventilators. This is why they continually said, we need ventilators. Oh, we need 30,000 over here, 50,000 over there. We need so many because everyone's going to be on a ventilator. And they knew there were none in stock. They didn't expect Trump to create all these ventilators so quickly. Remember, he used the Defense Production Act. But we have to remember the real mission behind this. He already knew that these ventilators wouldn't be needed. He used their weapon against them. He brought back the production of medical supplies to this country by creating ventilators. The same thing that has to go with testing. First of all, he knew that the tests that they were trying to push on the people here, they were faulty. We see it in other countries where they took a sample from a fruit, from a monkey and whatnot, and all came back with coronavirus. Trump knew this, and he brought back the manufacturing of tests here to the United States. The same thing with masks. Yes, there were certain companies like GM and 3M where he had to push a little bit to get them to where he wanted them, but he brought back the medical manufacturing back here to the United States. He used their weapons against them. And now they're talking about vaccines. Oh, we need a vaccine. Oh, we need a vaccine. So Trump, once again, he decided, let's create Operation Warp Speed. Let's use the military. Let's use all these manufacturers and create vaccines. Is that really what he's doing? Or is he bringing the production of medicine, therapeutics, and maybe vaccines back here to the United States? He already said at a press conference, listen, some people might want a vaccine, some people won't need a vaccine. At another press conference, he also mentioned that he doesn't think that we're going to need a vaccine. Remember Ebola? Remember the bird flu? Remember all these other things? He said that most likely this is just going to disappear on its own, which I do believe. Now, does this mean it'll be gone completely? No. It's like the flu. It's always around. But I do believe he's going to introduce hydroxychloroquine later. He's not mentioning it right now because what is the deep state planning? Remember, they're very worried about the elections. Why do you think they're talking about flare-ups? Why do you think they keep talking about, it's going to come back in the fall? Because they're seeing what's happening right now with the country opening. They can't stop it. People are awake now. The country's going to open up. They're going to try to shut it down once again with a flare-up. Now, this gives the FDA some time to approve hydroxychloroquine. We've had many, many doctors that have been using it, been very, very successful with it. Yes, the mainstream media, as soon as he mentioned it, they went out with their 4 a.m. talking points and they completely bashed it, saying it's very, very dangerous. Remember, this has been around like 60, 70 years. He's waiting for the right moment to use this. In the meantime, the real mission is to bring back the production of medicine, other therapeutics, other therapies. And he's using the military, many manufacturers to do this. So he's moving the supply chain out of China. Same thing with ventilators, same thing with masks, same thing with all the tests and everything that goes along with the tests. Same thing with the medicine and vaccines and all this other stuff, syringes, you name it, all that's being moved back here. These companies are going to be moving in full production in medicine manufacturing. How can he do this? He has the Defense Production Act. Trump, his main goal is to bring this back to the U.S. It's not to vaccinate every single person. Actually, I don't even think we're going to see these vaccines. I think this whole thing is just going to die off like all the others. Yes, the deep state, they're going to try to push their second wave, and he's all ready to combat that. The reporters continually ask him, how are you going to do this? And he says, don't worry, we'll handle it when the time is right. He knows exactly how he's going to handle it, but why would he let them know? He's not going to. Now, during this whole thing, we know that Trump can do many other things. He is now pushing Congress to demand hospital pricing transparency. The hospitals don't want to do this. And I have always questioned this. When you go to the doctor or to the dentist, why don't they have a chart with all the prices? Same thing in hospitals with how much this test is going to cost, how much this operation is going to be costing, because then you can make a judgment call saying, well, why would I want to go to this hospital when I can go to that hospital? Why are they keeping it a secret? You know everything else. If you go to a lawyer, do you know how much it's going to cost? Of course you do. If you go to an accountant, do you know how much it's going to cost? Of course you do. But for some reason, with doctors and hospitals, that's kept in the dark. And the hospitals, they're fighting against this. They don't want this to happen. The White House, Trump, his administration, they are pushing price transparency and a payroll tax cut in the next stimulus bill. And who knows? He might get it. I think he's going to try to push as much as he possibly can because he's going to say, listen, the economy's hurting. We need help right now. And we need to move forward to help the people. So to help the people, we need to do things that we normally wouldn't do because of the pandemic. Remember, he's going to use everything against them. And there are certain cities and states that are not going along with the deep state plan. I mean, look at California. Governor Newsom, we have New Jersey, we have New York, we have Michigan, we have all these places. And in California, Atwater, California, they decided, you know what, we're going to use their weapon against them. We're going to call ourselves a sanctuary cities. This sanctuary city is going to allow businesses and people to open up outside of the governor. And we're going to allow people to go back to normal life. So just by calling them a sanctuary city, and this is not for illegals, this is for the people to go back to work and open up. People within the state are going against their elected leaders. The elected leaders need to look very clearly of what they're doing. Because remember, the people elected them. The people, next time around, they're going to remember this. It's going to be very clear who the tyrants are. And these people who have been pushing their tyrannical agenda, they're going to be in trouble. Let's get into some of Q's posts here. This is post 4253. Q gives us a Twitter link to ODNI Gov status. And this is the U.S. intelligence community. And it will lead an all intelligence-based threat briefing to candidates, political organizations, campaigns under the U.S. government's notification framework. Sun Q Sue maps this out for us in a Twitter thread. And this is what Sun Q says. Here's the significance of @POTUS decision to have ODNI oversee and provide intel briefings on threats RE upcoming 2020 elections. Number one, DNI is in charge. If there's a foreign threat to election, DNI takes a lead and briefs both POTUS and the Dem candidate for president. This will prevent another Steele dossier claim from occurring. There will not be a repeat crossfire hurricane, and Dems on the House Intelligence Committee, like little Adam Schiff, will not be able to claim he has intel that Russia is interfering to help Trump campaign. DNI oversees this and will be required to report any election threat to both candidates. Dems will not be able to claim surprise. Number two, if China interferes with the election, they will, the Dem candidate will be provided with the same intel included who is working with the Chinese to interfere and all ramifications resulting from the interference. The Dem candidate will not be able to claim ignorance. Number three, the DNI will oversee all threats, foreign and domestic, to all elections in the U.S. that have national implications. If there are irregularities in the Soros voting machines, DNI takes the lead, as this would constitute a domestic threat to a U.S. election. If local Dem polls, precinct workers, or campaign volunteers tamper with ballots and mail-in ballots, DNI takes the lead, as this is a domestic threat to stability of our U.S. elections. Number four, if China caught tampering with our presidential election in favor of Dems, Dem candidate will not be able to feign ignorance, since DNI will have briefed the Dem candidate as to the threat. This is all part of @POTUS ODNI preparing to protect the 2020 elections. When Q said elections are safe, Q was referring to the 2020 elections. And you can see everything now is in the ODNI. And those individuals, the deep state players, Adam Schiff, many others, they do not like what Grinnell is doing. Remember, he's the acting ODNI. And Zachary Cohen, he tweeted this out. President Trump did not nominate you for confirmation as permanent DNI, and it would be inappropriate for you to pursue any additional leadership, organizational, or staffing changes to ODNI during your temporary tenure. Representative Adam Schiff wrote in a letter to Grinnell on April 7th, and Schiff, he is panicking. Grinnell responded, only in Washington, D.C. would one be appointed to a job but not expected to do the job. Remember why Trump put this individual in this position, an acting DNI director? Because temps can be very dangerous. Remember post 2654? Scaramucci model? Public opinion optics do not matter. Temps can be very dangerous to those who are targeted. And Grinnell, he's a temp. And he's doing the job he was put in there to do. The takedown of the deep state, this was never going to happen until documents were first declassified and made public. And this is what Grinnell is doing right now. He needs to show the people. This is why all this information is being dripped out. Q told us a long time ago that declass is coming. And then Trump, as we all remember, he signed an order giving Barr the ability to declass. So Barr does have the ability to declass, but the DNI director, or the acting DNI director, he also has the ability to declass information. And here we are today. We were waiting for who? Grinnell, the acting DNI. He is now declassing all the information. He's dripping it out, and they can't stop him. Post 4254 gives us a link to Governor Murphy. Now, Governor Murphy, he has decided to go along with the deep state, part of the deep state, and he says, breaking, our July 7th primary will be a primarily vote-by-mail election. All registered Democratic and Republican voters will receive a postage-paid vote-by-mail ballot. All unaffiliated and inactive voters will receive a postage-paid vote-by-mail ballot application. What does that mean? It means that this has nothing to do with the virus. This has everything to do with the election. Why can't people go to the polls? Let them stand 6 feet apart. They do this in stores. Why can't they do this in the polls? I don't see the problem. I go to Home Depot. I go to many other stores. There are lines down the block. People waiting to get in, standing 6 feet apart. So I think the elections can be done live, but they want it to be done through the mail-in ballot. Why? Because they can manipulate it that way. But what has Trump and the Patriots done? They've transferred everything to the ODNI. Now they'll be looking into everything. Q says, the truth is right in front of you. And remember, Soros and Clinton, they are behind the vote-by-mail push. There are certain organizations, the Center for American Progress, CAP, which functions as somewhat of an idea factory for the Democratic Party. They're a central part of this push to get everyone to do vote by mail. This is Soros once again trying to cheat in the elections. And remember, he pushes his agenda. He's an individual who's behind the curtain. He's the invisible enemy. Now, Trump and the Patriots, they're exposing tyrants in each state. And people are starting to see all of this in real time. Now, the mainstream media, they're out there, and the corrupt politicians, and they're trying to switch everything around to say, oh, no, the tyrants are right, and the people protesting, they're wrong. They're the tyrants, and the elected official is not the tyrant. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, there's an article coming out of Newsweek, and it says, Michigan closes down Capitol in face of death threats from armed protesters against Governor Whitmer. This individual is telling each one of these people that you cannot make a living, you cannot feed your family, your business will be lost, and everything you work for is gone. Are people going to be angry? The people now, when they go to the Capitol building in Michigan or any other state, and they protest and they tell, and remember, this is part of our constitutional rights, they tell the elected leader, the people do not want this, and the elected leader doesn't listen, people are going to get angry. Now, am I saying there should be violence? No. Protest should be peaceful. And the more people you have, the louder the message. And remember, there's a lot more of us than there are of them. Now, of course, what is the mainstream media? What is the corrupt politicians doing? They're making a really big deal out of this, trying to make it seem like the people are dangerous. And Whitmer, she is right. Actually, it's the other way around. Because we can see the numbers are declining. We can see many other states are opening up. Businesses are coming back online. And what do these people hate? They hate when people wake up. This is what Hillary Clinton tweeted out. Armed men storming a legislature to disrupt the democratic proceeding is domestic terrorism. It cannot be tolerated. Really? Did she look at the Constitution? This is not domestic terrorism. This is our rights. Julian Drum responded to her. Thomas Jefferson on gun control. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man. The founding fathers permitted us, first of all, to have weapons, to fight off a tyrannical government. The founding fathers told us that we have every right to protest and to question the person that we put into that position. And if that person is not doing what the people want, that person needs to remove themselves or be removed. And this is what the people are doing. This is not domestic terrorists. This is everyday people, hardworking Americans who are speaking out. And as Q would say, up is down, down is up, left is right, right is left. This is exactly what they're doing. Let's move on to post 4,255. This is the shuttle launch. This is back in 2011. Q is letting us know that the countdown is a go. Where we go one, we go all. Post 4,256. Q gives us a Twitter link to Maria Bartiromo. And it says, at Real Donald Trump, Trump unmasking of Flynn is greatest political scam in history of U.S. And it says, Flynn, Department of Justice, dismiss week 1. Then it says, FISA, unmask, declass, public, select dates, week 2. This is the dripping of the declassified information. Class 1 through 99, week 3, you are here. And then gives us week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we are now in week 3, classification 1 through 99. This is where we are right now. So in the third week of 10, where they're going to be dripping this information out. Remember the post that we just read? The countdown is a go. Here we are. This is Boom Week. Post 4,258 is a Twitter link, again, to Maria Bartiromo. And it says, Trump, we have a lot of information on Wuhan lab, and it's not good. Q says public versus, and this is in brackets and bold, matters of national security. And I do believe that Q is letting us know that they're going to show that it was leaked from Wuhan. They're not going to say that this was done on purpose, because there are going to be certain individuals, which I do believe, that are going to say we're going to have to retaliate against China. Because if they make the case that this was a bioweapon, there are certain individuals that are going to try to push war. Trump, the Patriots, they don't want to go into war. They will show that it was leaked from Wuhan. It wasn't from the wet market. It was from Wuhan. And we're already starting to see that this information is now coming out. And it appears that U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, he was right when he accused Beijing of failing to provide and in fact destroying samples of the virus at the start of the outbreak. The South China Morning Post reports that Liu Dengfeng, an official with the National Health Commission Science and Education Department, confirmed China had ordered unauthorized laboratories to destroy samples of the new coronavirus in the early stage of the outbreak, but claimed these orders were given for biosafety reasons. And I do believe that there's a lot of information that's going to be coming out from Wuhan, where Trump and the Patriots, they're going to be letting this information out. Trump, the Patriots, they want to avoid a war, but I think what they're going to do here is show who was involved, who funded the operation. Follow the money. And I think this is their goal, their tactic, is to show which individuals were involved in this. Who funded the operation? Who was involved? Who didn't even speak up about it? Who covered up certain information? Now, Trump, the Patriots, they can do this without starting a war. And they can expose those individuals, the invisible enemy behind this. It is a brilliant plan. And if you really look at what they're doing right now, it's all about dripping out declassified information, making the mainstream media, these deep state players, feel pain with every drip, pushing them back into the corner, letting them continually lie to say we had nothing to do with this, because as more information comes out, they're pushed back into the corner even further. And soon, everyone's going to realize that they lied each time. Same thing with the mainstream media. They don't even really want to cover this. And the question we all have to ask is why? Because they knowingly used propaganda. They knowingly worked with the deep state. They knowingly knew all about this, and they covered it up. They were knowingly involved in all of this. All of them knowingly knew exactly what they were doing. Trump and the Patriots, they're now exposing it all. It's all coming out, and the countdown has started. Boom Week, incoming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.